Patreon.com/the Walk-Off Podcast. $4 a month gets you in there.
I'm hoping you can clear something up for me here. I know John Morosi reported yesterday morning that Don Mattingly joins the Nashville Stars organization. Of course, they're considered one of the front runners as a location for MLB expansion site to provide counsel and strategic matters and work to gain support in bringing a Major League Baseball franchise to Nashville. Do you know how this affects his role with the Blue Jays? Like, is this an off-season project? Is he still fully focused on the Jays?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is anything. I mean, like, this doesn't exist. This team doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Yes.
So, I mean, I haven't done too much work on that yet. I did see that, and it's interesting, but still, Oakland and Tampa are still unresolved, and Rob Manfred has made it clear until those two situations are resolved, we're not talking about expansion. I don't know.
And those will resolve themselves quickly, right? If the past has shown us anything.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, because it hasn't been like an ongoing talking point for a decade or whatever. But like, Oakland, if Oakland doesn't figure it out in Oakland, then it does seem like Las Vegas would be where they'd end up. On the flip side, if there hasn't been a lot on sort of Tampa had the split market team, and that was more, that was really sort of just a trial balloons or a pressure tactic that nobody really believed was ever going to happen, except for the people in Montreal who made an honest effort on it and probably deserved a lot better than what they got. I can understand if they feel quite used by Major League Baseball, although the Rays seemed to genuinely be interested in it. But is Nashville the number one site? Does Major League Baseball want to try to kind of save that as an expansion location? Portland's interested, Charlotte's interested, how all that sets up. But for the time being, it's kind of, I would guess, I don't know this for a fact, is just there to stump for it, provide a little credibility to the effort, and is, it's sort of a ceremonial role and nothing more. And there's no competitive aspect for this. It's not like he's going to go to the Nashville organization and start giving them secrets about the Blue Jays, because there is no organization. It doesn't exist.
So this amounts to emails and Zoom calls, right?
Yeah.
I would assume in public facing, and just, and again, I haven't talked to him, so I don't know any of this for a fact, but you just think about like the Portland project, and they've gotten a bunch of high profile people to be involved with it there who have ties to the Portland community, and it's just essentially for some visibility and some attention. So Don Mattingly is obviously a name that carries a significant amount of cachet, and it commands a certain level of credibility. So sure.
So don't panic. He doesn't have one foot out the door already.
Yeah,
I figured it was a nothing burger. You summed it up really well. You're like, this is not a real team yet. That's a good way of looking at it.
Worth keeping in mind.
Just like the Boston Red Sox.
Okay.
Sorry,
shots fired.
Before we move on from the Red Sox, what is going on with Trevor Story and the Red Sox?
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly
wild timing
to some degree about the issues with this throwing arm in recent seasons and the decline there. And obviously the timing is completely not ideal. And, the circumstances are tough for the Red Sox, but they've been like, if you look at them last year, like if you throw out their record against the Blue Jays, like they were pretty much the Toronto Blue Jays, right? Like the Blue Jays got to the playoffs on the basis of them going 15-4 against the Red Sox last year. Yeah. No, but really, I think that's the two different. If you look at isolate the records against the rest of baseball for both clubs, like that was a difference. And if Trevor Story is healthy for that team, how much different is that? Does that play out, right? And are the Red Sox suddenly in the mix? It's that's kind of how close the Red Sox were to being relevant last year. But then you look at the changes now, and losing Bogarts is gutting for that team. Although in the long term, I think that's probably the good play for them. They make the move to keep Devers, which is significant. The rotation is not the same now, and they're kind of just really in chaos up the middle, the entire roster. So they're in such a weird position where, they're trying to build up their base. They need to be relevant. They're have more talent than, than a team that would go on about a tank would. Uh, but they're not nearly competitive enough to hang with the Jays, the Yankees, and the Rays, and even the Orioles at this point. So it's a really weird spot for them. And if a healthy Trevor Story makes a major difference in the calculus there, but now they need an entire new up the middle.
Do you think if this Trevor Story surgery was to have, I mean, they had to have been aware that this was a possibility, but it's just interesting that wouldn't have factored into the calculus with their approach to Xander Bogaerts.
Well, and to me, like, and just in talking to some people around the Red Sox and familiar with the Red Sox situation, like, it really seems the mistake there was lowballing him during spring training last year.
Right.
And that was really their window. And that if they had come to him with the type of offer they were making during the winter meetings, they probably would have got it done during spring training. Right. And it would have never gotten to that point. And the fact that it didn't, that opened the door. So it really seems like the mistake there was trying to kind of like get it done on a cheap, or make a half-hearted effort, however you want to describe it. And then, at that point, if you're kind of like, if you don't believe in the player enough to kind of make the deal, then, you don't pay a price that you're not comfortable with just because you've got uncertainty elsewhere in the roster. Because then you kind of compound the damage where, years down the road, you're locked into a path that you don't have faith in. So, that would sort of be the way that I would look at it. I think the mistake was in spring training, not so much this offseason. Once you get into, look, I mean, the Yankees nearly had this with Aaron Judge, right? Once you let a player get to free agency and other teams get involved, like, at that point, like,
it gets expensive.
But anything can happen too, right? Like, somebody tugs at your heartstrings. The situation just feels really good. You talk to a different manager and you're like, oh, I actually like the way that they do things here. Or like, I have these friends on the team, or this is where it works really well for my family in different ways. Whatever the scenario is, it just, all these doors are suddenly open. And that's the danger when you let a player get to the market. The money obviously is one part of it, but there are other things that can sway somebody too. And, very nearly did with Aaron Judge, and ended up playing out that way with Bogaerts.
So let's end this Red Sox talk with a yes or no question here, Shine. I know the offseason's not over, but do you think they are currently the worst team in the AL East?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, they started the offseason there. And
yeah.
I right. And no, but I mean, just like, you think about where the Orioles are, and I think the Orioles to this point, their offseason has been a bit disappointing in terms of what they've added. Expected them to, they went into this with plans to be more aggressive, and there's still some players out there, but I don't think they've executed the plan that they would have ideally hoped for. But the base of talent that they have, the young players that they have coming up, the way they play, like, they have one of the best players in the division, even though he's a young player, and Adley Rutschman. I just watching him, I can't, I don't think the impact that he had in changing that team and transforming that club should be underestimated. And, that's going to be a factor. I don't know right now that the Red Sox have that type of young player, or even sort of like experienced player other than Devers on the roster. So, yeah, I mean, they lost JD Martinez, they lost Nate Eovaldi. They're counting on Sale and Paxton to be significant contributors to a rotation. And, who knows if they'll be able to be healthy first and foremost, let alone productive. I mean, there's just a ton of very significant questions that they're facing.
All right, Shai, we won't keep you any longer. We love talking Blue Jays and baseball with you. Thank you so much for coming back on the show, my man. All the best in 2023. And darn well we'll bug you again down the road to come back on. So thanks again, man.
Yeah, no worries.